Hi, welcome to our first podcast on Under the Bus. I'm the good.
I'm the bad.
Fuck it. I guess I'm the ugly.
And we got some stuff to talk about.
So,
All right.
where are we starting then? We're starting with Canine Cannabis?
Yep.
Or are we introducing ourselves at this point?
Well, I'm Reed,
I am Jared.
I'm Devin.
and Devin's also pretty ugly. So, anyway, our first topic on this beautiful, beautiful podcast set is canine cannabis and how it's happening out in California. So, currently out in San Diego, there is a politician, a Democrat, I think, state senator or state rep, I can't remember. Devin's got details on that.
Yeah, I'll get to that here in a little bit.
But they are looking to legalize cannabis for pets. And the big issue with that is overdosing and how it's practically impossible for a human to overdose on cannabis. However, for pets, the dosage, depending on, especially with dogs, and how you can have a Chihuahua, but you can also have a Saint Bernard or a Great Dane. So the dosage can really impact the dog itself, and if it's not regulated, then it could end up with a lot of accidental pet overdoses that are meant for good things, because the canine cannabis would be medical and not recreational. And currently they also don't know what it's like if a dog, like what a dog would see if it's high. Whereas with people, we can communicate and actually can say, yeah, I had a nice trip, it was great.
You've seen All
10 out of
Dogs
10.
Go to Heaven, right?
Yeah.
It'd probably be something like that in the intro to the second film where there's all the dogs in like the little bar or whatever.
The way I see it, I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything on the senator that's involved in it. But there is a lot of veterinary clinics and a lot of public movement for it. For it,
Yeah,
over in California, a lot of people for it. There's a case here, elderly Chihuahua, who is having like severe hip dysplasia and a whole bunch of other issues. Not a French or English bulldog, believe it or not. But and she's in her elder stage of the life, and the owner just doesn't want to have to put her down. So, there's that bond between dog and man or woman, So, her alternative is getting treatables, which is essentially canine medical cannabis. And she is the main public movement, along with, of course, the center that I have not been able to find, but probably out there somewhere. And there is a veterinary group that I cannot seem to find the name of anymore, that is extremely into the idea of just lowering the dosage of THC within the canine cannabis. It would still help dog or canines with problems that they're having, but it won't lead to the easy overdose. The Chihuahua roll over on the floor. So,
God.
Yeah, foam everywhere. And then there's something else here, and I'm not sure what it is. It's CBD.
No, that's another.
Is that another chemical that's within?
I do believe so.
CBD is also found in hemp, which can be legally imported. Yeah, which hemp. The thing about hemp too is that's what these treatables are actually being made out of. It's not in technicality, it's not truly full on cannabis.
It's not the bud itself.
Yeah.
It's the fibers.
Yeah. And hemp can be legally imported.
Yeah, I mean that's where you get hemp rope, and I mean hemp has been grown in the U.S. since the colonial days for its use in rope and everything.
I think we should go back to it for a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
It would conserve so many trees, and it would conserve a lot of other things as well. Hemp can be used even for water bottles, and they're biodegradable. have a friend up in Alaska who shared an article with me, a couple of them actually, that talks about it. There's a couple of places out in California, along the West Coast, Hawaii, Alaska, that are really investing in hemp water bottles. And I'm not really sure too much of the details anymore. It was a while since I read up on it, but there was a case, a side-by-side analysis of the decomposition between regular plastic water bottles and hemp water bottles. And the hemp water bottles, they essentially disintegrated into the soil after about a month. It might have even been sooner than that, and they left fertile soil behind because the hemp, returned to the soil. Plastic, if it does disintegrate, you're left with just essentially resin left in the soil if it does disintegrate into the soil. So, but
there's one problem that I always think of with like biodegradable things. What if you end up, I can put this, like my car, for you guys watching this, Devin knows that I have a lot of water bottles in there. Like, a lot of water bottles.
They roll around. I can hear them when he's driving. They're just rolling everywhere.
Yeah, actually today when I hit the brakes at one point, like I had to kind of step on the brakes a little harder than usual. One actually rolled up under my driver's seat and hit me in the back of the leg. And I'm like, I might want to move this, grabbed it, threw it out of the way. But yeah, they're all like half full that I've drank out of, and it's just like, yeah. Like I originally had a nice stack of them, and they were like in a nice neat pile. And then I had one of my siblings hop in the car and throw them all onto the ground. So now they're just rolling around willy-nilly. And anyway, with the biodegradable water bottles, if they decompose too quickly, like what are the side effects of those chemicals like going into the water itself?
Nothing good.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it would be anything good. Are you talking about the hemp water bottles? Or both of it would be terrible.
Yeah.
Plastic would be frightening.
Well, the thing about plastic is it doesn't disintegrate as fast, like what you were saying with the hemp.
But the chemicals within the plastic is a severe issue. The hemp, on the other hand, well, I mean, essentially, people. I don't know how much of a level of THC hemp actually has in it compared to something like cannabis.
Probably not as much.
I wouldn't think so, because according to this here, going back to the canine cannabis, it says here, unlike human edibles, the pet version has only a tiny fraction of THC, the psychoactive ingredient in cannabis, said Juliana Corella, CEO of the Oakland-based company. The Oakland-based company is the group that's really trying to push for these hemp treatables. Its main ingredient, these treatables' main ingredient, is CBD, which is another compound or cannabinoid in cannabis or hemp, both, that does not make people or animals high, but offers relief from anxiety and pain. So essentially, it takes out that factor of, whoa, man, I don't know what high people sound like because I don't smoke weed. But
I can't because I'm allergic.
But he coughs and wheezes and gets sores and rashes or whatever.
Been to Hemp Fest in Ann Arbor, or Hash Bash in Ann Arbor.
Oh God,
that one was fun. That one's really fun when you have a huge crowd of people out there smoking it, and you're allergic and you're going down the street.
No, that was during Quiz Bowl, right?
Yeah, that was Quiz Bowl.
That was during Quiz Bowl.
Oh, and also,
that was a school event.
Yeah, and on top of it, what was there? There were 6 of us that went. Me and another kid were allergic, so it wasn't just me being allergic. There were 2 of us. So that one was great. Best Quiz Bowl trip ever.
Indeed. I wasn't there. I didn't go to school with these guys. I went to Central Montcalm, another school.
I didn't go either. I mean, I've only been on the Chicago and the Alabama thing.
Oh, you didn't go? I was thinking that you did.
No, I didn't. Believe me, I would have known.
Why didn't you go on that?
I don't think I... When was that?
That was April. Oh, that was over... You were in Europe. That's
shoot, that's right. Yeah. I was
there was only 5 of us, and 2 of us were allergic.
I was out of country.
Yep. Okay, do we want to go ahead and hop into
the California water crisis.
Jumping
Sure.
from pot to water now.
California, a host of issues. A host. Yeah, so over in California, as anyone that's living in pretty much northern Mexico, all of the United States, southwestern Canada, a lot of people know that California is going through a severe drought. They have been for a while now. And they have periodically throughout California's history gone through these droughts. This recent one, however, has been extremely terrible, and has resulted in many people in Southern California losing access to water outright. The only problem that people don't realize is that a lot of this actually doesn't even have to do with the drought itself. It is these massive farm companies that are conglomerates that are sucking up all the water in Southern California and are using it and just holding on to it even because they know that they can control it. They are controlling the water market out in California, which is highly illegal, mind you. The United States federal water law, well, resource law in general, prohibits any private group from controlling access to a public resource, which includes water. Includes a lot of other things too that corporations hold access to. But in this case, it's water. And I cannot remember the name for the life of me of the biggest contributor to this issue, but they own many vineyards out there. And they do something called water trading, which it sounds rather innocent, farmers selling water that they have access to other farmers. The only problem is this massive conglomerate is selling water or buying water from subsidiary farms that are essentially taking up all the water underneath their land, because this is how water law works over in California. It doesn't matter if the aquifer goes beneath your house or your property and another person's property. If it goes underneath your property, you have full access to that water. If you build a well, if you get a well down there, you have access to all that water. Same right as the person next to you and the person next to them, as long as that aquifer goes underneath their property. So you have these little tiny farms that are selling for massive profit their water to this one massive conglomerate. And that massive conglomerate is just holding on to it. They're just holding on to it. And I was talking with Reed about this a while ago, last week or so. And it's a rather morbid thought, but I'm just waiting. I am just waiting. Because prior to this, you should know that when you suck so much water out of an aquifer, out of a massive underground supply of water of any kind, that water holds up the top layer of the crust. That water gives support to the upper layer of the crust. So you end up with divots in roads and potholes. I'm just waiting for all of Southern California to have one earthquake based on the San Andreas fault line, and for the state of Jefferson to be made out of the remnants of Northern California at this point, because it's all just going to go...
You were given the rock in San Andreas, now you're given the rock and the water from below.
Pretty much. But
so for those of you who don't know what Jefferson is, it's a state up in... Well, it was supposed to be a state that comprised of Southern Oregon or part of Southern Oregon and most of Northern California. It's actually a really cool story if you want into it, or if you want to go into it. But just a quick summary, back in the Great Depression when everything was going to hell in a handbasket for American citizens, Jefferson citizens wanted to break off from California, and they said, okay, we'll hold an election. And the federal government said, great, how does December 8th, 1941 sound? And citizens were like, that sounds great. It's going to be a bit chilly, late December or early December, right before winter. But, it should be good. Day before the election happened, Pearl Harbor was bombed, and we went to war with Japan. And everyone kind of forgot about Jefferson.
Now, and not to jump back, but I did find the name of the massive conglomerate over there, the Resnicks. Stuart and Linda Resnick own a massive amount of farmland in California and all around the world. Their profits seem to be immune to drought, and there's a documentary on Netflix. You can probably find it on YouTube. It is what is it here? It's Water and Power: A California Heist. It is extremely eye-opening because in that it talks about fed up residents telling of contaminated water, no water at all, which was what I was talking about earlier. There's many that have no access to water at whatsoever. But only when the movie turns from small town specifics to the uncertain future of our global water markets does the real chill set in. Because not only are droughts happening in California, that's what we think about because they're part of the United States. They're part of our union. We think about them first, but there's droughts going on all over the world. And the real issue that hits me is, and I don't know if you guys have ever watched it, it's called The Big Short. It's a very interesting film. It has Steve Carell in it. It's all about the 2008 housing market crash. At the end of that film, the main guy you learned that the main guy in the film, one of the main guys, who's played by Christian Bale, who was the first one to notice the issue with the housing market mortgages. He was the one that he made like billion. I want to say it was somewhere in the range of $30 billion off of shorting the housing market, because he was betting against the housing mortgages of the banks. Do you know what he put all of his money in afterwards? Any guesses?
Probably something to do with the water.
The water market. He put massive amounts. He is now shorting. He has been since 2010, I believe. He's been shorting the water market. He has put all of his stocks, all of his investors' stocks, everything into shorting, betting against the water market. This guy is extremely intelligent. And the way that I see it, we should all be like running for our lives, like screaming, like the government doesn't say anything about it, but this guy knows. He's shorting it. He shorted the housing market. He knew. We need to see something, or say something. But
yeah, I know. Like a couple of years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we were talking about one day in class how politicians out in California and like Nevada and stuff, where they're having all these water shortages, they want to start pumping from the Great Lakes, build a big pipeline out there, and just start shuttling water out to California, taking from the Great Lakes that surround Michigan and the Midwest, and they want to start pumping all that water over to California so that they don't have to experience drought.
That's our water.
Yeah.
Let us not forget the days of Engler. Engler not only was selling water to other states, including California. For those of you that don't live in Michigan, Engler was the governor here during the late 90s. He was Republican. He sold massive amounts of Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, Lake Huron water to other states that were going through droughts during his regime. And not only that, he was selling Lake Michigan sand to the Middle East for glass, for a whole bunch of things. There were people that would come. I was reading an article recently. People would be took pictures during the late 90s. Whole beach areas of Lake Michigan and Lake Huron, even nothing but rocks. All the sand was gone. It was all gravel and rock. There was no beach. There were areas where the water, where even during low tide, it was just all water up to an eroded shoreline, because there was no sand, there was no buffer, there was no anything, there was nothing there because he had sold all the sand and given it to everyone else, and he had given
to the Middle East, which is desert.
But they don't have good sand for glass, and he was selling it for other things as well. And he did the same thing with water, and we now currently have
We do have nice sand.
We do.
We do. Lake Michigan sand, I believe, is the finest in the world, for glass making especially. But, yeah. That's another big issue with having the longest shoreline of any state, and I believe of any.
I think Alaska has a lot longer shoreline.
Okay, of the contiguous.
Yeah.
Or what is that? Is that contiguous?
Yeah, contiguous 48.
Yeah.
But so the great thing, I was watching a video the other day. Shorelines are actually very hard to calculate because the closer you look at it, the more nooks and crannies you get. So then the CIA or whatever, I think it was the CIA.
The World Fact.
They have
World Fact Bank or whatever.
Yeah. Well, each like independent agency in the U.S. That like does maps and everything, they have their own distance that they covered in the shoreline, and each of them have relatively different distances for America's shorelines because it goes on the point of like the star, like the closer you look at it, the longer your coastline becomes because of all the nooks and crannies. And if you go to the molecular level, it can't. Yeah, the molecular lever. You pull it and everything becomes atoms again. You go down to the molecular level and you do it by atoms. It becomes near infinite.
By the way, just a quick note. We might want to cut a quick break because apparently the camera batteries are almost dead.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just do a quick phase in and out, guys. We're going to check the batteries, and we will be back with our last topic or two. So
1, 2, 3.
Okay, welcome back, guys, from the short little break. Might have it
probably
behind
wasn't short for them. I mean,
oh yeah,
it fades in and out, but
we have a little
saying.
outtake thing we'll show you later. Thanks to a friend. But let's get on to our third and final topic, which is the tariffs that have been recently appearing thanks to our lovely president.
They're not installed yet, mind you.
they're still going through Congress because Congress does not do something.
Propositions.
And we have a 30% increase on solar panels, and a 25% increase on aluminum, steel, copper, and iron.
Copper and iron are on his list now because he's aiming at Canada for copper, and he's aiming at Mexico for iron. So tariffs wise, so
and this oh geez,
it's gonna be fun.
To your father, maybe that'd probably be a good point.
My father works at an establishment that works on bumpers. Bumpers nowadays, a lot of them have a lot of plastic parts, but for the most part, many others are aluminum and steel, sometimes alloys of both, sometimes not. The problem is with tariffs, which are essentially specialized import taxes, is that when you put a tariff on something that is so specialized, like an aluminum or steel tariff, you end up not only hurting the other country or multiple countries' economies that have to pay the tariff to import to you, you also hurt the industries that require those materials in your own country. Tariffs are very territorial taxes meant to bring up competition internationally.
It's pretty much a big fuck you. We want to do our own thing.
Yeah, that's true. And with that, it hurts businesses. My father could very well lose his job or simply be laid off in the near couple of months if this proposition moves forward, if these proposals move forward.
I thought of something. I don't know if this would be the complete opposite. Would that mean scrap yards would technically pay you more?
Yes, absolutely. That's one other thing. That's part of the reason why businesses have to lay off is because the value of these metals skyrockets with tariffs, because at least in countries that are imposing the tariffs, because it's a vice versa. The country who has the tariff imposed will suffer a massive amount of inflation in the cost of those materials. The country who is trying to import those materials to the country that has the tariff imposed, the cost of their material will deflate terribly. So you'll have one country who will have to lay off workers in those departments that use those materials because they can no longer afford, or they're having a hard time buying the same amount of these materials, and then the countries that are suffering from those import taxes that have to send their materials to where it is imposed suffer, because then the value of their materials go down.
So how about an opinion though on the first one that I mentioned, solar power? Because personally, I completely support and love renewable energy, and this took a big hit to a lot of companies because solar panels are already expensive as it is.
Well, and I'll just say this real quick. Renewable energy has its problems.
Yeah. I do agree.
And I don't think that anytime soon we will be getting rid of coal or gas or anything that relies on those things. I don't think we'll get rid of those anytime soon. But I think the true aim of this tariff is simply to defend the profitability of oil and gas, fossil fuels in general, because they have such a political hold, at least here in the United States and for the most part around the world. And I think, not to insult Trump personally or anything, but I think that is his aim. We know that he is not for renewable energy. We know that he is not. He believes that global warming is a hoax. So, I think made up by China. So, I don't think that. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Reed?
I think the whole tariff thing is, especially on our neighbors in Canada, which we have been pretty close to allies with for a couple
closest allies in proximity and in time since the Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, how many volunteers in the Civil War came down from Canada to help fight for the Union?
Oh yeah.
And I mean, if you look at it, there were Americans during World War II and World War I that probably went off to Canada to join up with the Canadians to go off and fight in the war. And so I understand kind of, we'll put some tariffs on China because they make all these cheap solar panels and it's taking away from American jobs. But now you're putting it on these countries that we have very close ties with, and it almost leads to more suspicion by those countries, and those bonds that we've created over the last how many decades are fading just because we're saying, hey, we kind of want to do our own thing, so we're going to start to restrict your trade. And it's kind of like me going up to Jared and saying, hey, Jared, you know how, say I took Jared out to lunch, every couple days, just as a friend. Wish. Hey, let's go out to Subway or whatever. And all of a sudden I just go, hey, Jared, I need you, after 5 or 6 trips, I'm like, Jared, I need all that money that I spent on you. I need that back by tomorrow, or else we're no longer friends. And it's just, it turns into a big fuck you for all those countries, because it's like, we've worked together for so long, and now you're deciding that my things aren't good enough, or my things aren't the best option.
See, though, that's the whole plan. Trump's whole presidency, whole administration, I think, is just one massive counterculture. He has systematically alienated the United States from many of our allies. He has pushed away from the EU. He has pushed away from the UN even. More importantly, the EU, the European Union. He has pushed away massively from France and Germany because the conservative movements there failed. He has even pushed away from where the conservative movements have succeeded. He has pushed away from the UK, and he is aiming more for an Asiatic diplomatic goal. He is trying to close our ties with people that have not been too fond of us in the past, including China and Russia.
China.
And I think him moving in all fairness, I think him moving in with China, closeness-wise, is not a bad thing. And I don't think him moving in with Japan is a bad thing either.
I was going to say, Japan and South Korea are definitely, they've been big allies with us for a while now.
But at the same time, he completely contradicts that with new tariffs. China is a major hit when it comes to aluminum. He is aiming pretty much worldwide with these things. And everything that he does, he contradicts a day later, a week later, a month later with a new statement. Doesn't mean that he contradicts it in action. He contradicts it with his words. Just recently, the Parkland incident down in Florida. For those of you that don't know, I mean, it's pretty big news. It was the school shooting down in Florida very recently. And he came out in support of tighter gun control laws. It was only, I believe, a couple days, if even that, that he had several meetings, day-long meetings with the NRA, which is the National Rifle Association, and said, we had great meetings. You know, we're gonna make sure that these laws don't pass. We're gonna really push through for the freedom of the Second Amendment. And
I don't know if this is truth or lie, and I can't remember where I heard it, but I swear to God, some source, and it might have even just been on the plain old news, but I mean, it could have been fake, you know.
CNN, Fox, all those good ones.
But supposedly, his son was supporting this group or whatever that was actually harassing and calling the students at the school actors and fakes.
Oh, wait, which son? Was it Junior?
I'm not 100% sure.
There is a man out there named Alex Jones. If you know him, stop knowing him, because this man is the anathema to progress. He is a conspiracy theorist wingnut.
He does it to sell his own product.
He does it to sell, like, buy this new Alex Jones tent that will protect you from mind control waves.
Flex tape.
He has called out. Not only did he call out Parkland as a false flag operation by the government to get gun control laws in place, he called many of the students actors. He was like, "Oh well, you know, I'm kind of saddened. I thought they were all real at first, but then I found out that they were actors." He said he did the same thing about Sandy Hook.
Oh my God.
He did the same thing about Sandy Hook. Did the same thing about the Las Vegas shooting. Everyone there was acting. Even the guy that shot around, he was acting. His channel, and I will say it, I will give it credence, sadly, is InfoWars. Check him out, and then you will know what I'm talking about if you are a sensible human being.
I don't know how you can call that stuff fake. That's...
I was going to say, especially with Sandy, like, I can understand with others, like, oh, yeah, it's fake, like, a couple people. But Sandy Hook was elementary students, and that...
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me that they brought in a ton of child actors who no one has ever heard of to act out getting shot?
It is a very dystopian viewpoint.
Battery, by the way, just to let you guys know.
Okay.
Well, should we probably call it?
I want to apologize for the first podcast, by the way, guys. We've been having some trouble with shortage on batteries, which I thought I had taken care of. That would be a problem on my part. So
we should sign off.
I don't mean to cut us short, but